First of all, I can sign you any paper you like, that a bottle of wine cannot cost more than 20 euros per bottle to produce. Any bottle of wine, yeah?
Welcome to a new episode of Most Memorable Journeys. My guest today does something that I really like, and he's not a travel agent, because that's the other thing that I really like. He makes wine, and I met him recently at a conference of, it was in Cyprus, here in Cyprus, in Platris, and I thought I really need to speak to this man because he has studied the perfect combination to be a good winemaker and a good wine seller. He studied marketing, chemistry, and winemaking. And I think that's about as good as it can get. Marcos Zambartas, welcome to Most Memorable Journeys.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you.
So is your company, is Zambartas Wines your baby, or is it in your family?
My father founded Zambartas Winery back in 2006. I was there from the beginning. I left for Australia to study winemaking in Adelaide and came back in 2008 and worked as the winemaker.
Excellent. So Adelaide, you mean the Barossa Valley, I would imagine.
It is, Barossa Valley is part of the Adelaide district. That's correct.
Yeah, but you went to the University of Adelaide.
Yes, correct.
Did you enjoy Australia?
Yes, Australia, well, the wine world is very enjoyable in general. And it's true that South Australia is quite, if you are into wine, it's a fun place to be. To be fair about Adelaide, it was nothing memorable. Or the Australians, most of the Australians that I came across with outside the wine world. I mean, Adelaide is a small city, but all in all, it was a very positive experience. And of course, the wine world of Adelaide, it's very developed, very mature, very advanced, and it was a very enriching experience.
There are certain areas in this world, I think. One of them, obviously, is Australia. And then, as far as I know, my personal experience, another one is the Napa Valley. And then another one would be South Africa. Have you been to all the wine regions in this world?
Well, I think no one can visit all the wine regions in the world unless that's his or her job. But I've traveled extensively in Australia around the wine regions. And since I came back to Europe, I'm trying to visit different wine regions. It's much less homogeneous, of course, than it would be in Australia. But with a young family and running your own business, traveling to taste different wines around Europe is not necessarily, it's quite demanding when it comes to time. I've been to Chile before with my father. And I'm planning to visit more areas in the future.
Amazing. Yes, you have two small children, and I can understand because I'm talking from my point of view. I am old and I have been everywhere, but when you are my age, you will probably have been to more places than I have. Chile is an interesting wine region. And to be honest, I traveled to Argentina in March 2020, the day COVID was declared a pandemic. And I actually I had to leave after 3 days, but I was planning to go first to Buenos Aires and then to Mendoza and drive around the Argentinian wine regions, which didn't happen because I had to fly home and then quarantine here in Cyprus. So that's Argentina owes me. I will actually go back. Which wines are, I mean, that is not a good question. Which wines are the best? How do you differentiate wines?
First, I like to have in mind the price of the wine I'm drinking. For me, an honest wine, when it comes to its pricing, it's a very important factor. So, and then it has to be a wine that it speaks of its place. If I am so what I'm trying to say here is that if it's a wine made in region X, but it could be made because of the style, it could be made anywhere else in the world, it's not an interesting wine. So I'm looking to taste different flavors. It's very interesting to know the story of the wine. Just being giving a glass of wine blind, it's much less enjoyable than if you know the story. And so I do differentiate the wine with price. How does it taste? If it's anything different. When I say different, it has to be also good. I mean, there are wines nowadays that they have off flavors, but they're considered as low intervention wines or natural wines, all of this is good, but the wine has to be faultless. Otherwise, cannot be too much. It could be not too enjoyable, really. So yeah, price, character, and the story.
And talking about story, I just made a note, story. There are different places in the world that claim to have the oldest winemaking in the world. I know that one of them is Armenia, but I also know that one of them is Cyprus. And our oldest wine is Gomandaria. What is the story of Gomandaria?
Now, to set the record straight, for the moment, Georgia is the one that...
Or Georgia, yeah.
Yeah, Georgia could boast as the oldest wine region of the world. Based on current science and current knowledge. For Cyprus, Kumandaria, yes, it is a very old wine, and the way that was made, it probably stayed without too much change for many centuries or millennials. But okay, I'm not too quick to say the oldest wine of Europe is Kumandaria, or I'm not too quick to. It sounds like too bold of a statement. But yes, it is a wine of the medieval times. That is for sure. Yeah, that's science. Those are facts. If it's the oldest or not, I don't know. But Kumandaria, the way it's made, which is stand drying traditional grapes of Cyprus, Xynisteri, which is white, and Mavro, which is red. It's a very old method and well documented. This method of making sweet wine is it's really a very old method of making wine.
I know because I came to Cyprus because of the tourism industry, and I remember, going on the tours and then going to Colossi Castle, and that's what the tour guides used to say, because it was who was it now? I'm trying to think. Colossi Castle, the
Knights Templar.
That's right. Yes. So that goes back a long time. And the reason why we're talking about this is because we have people listening to this podcast in 121 countries. So not everybody knows at the moment what we're talking about. Colossi Castle is a castle here in Cyprus, and everybody should come to Cyprus and visit it and try Zambartas wines.
It's yes, I mean the name Kumandaria derives from the word command. Yes, la grande commanderie. So it was really from the Knights Templar, when it was this Colossi Castle was the headquarters of those knights back then. So that order, I should say. And they used to sweeten the wine as well, which was a bit different what is happening now with sugar canes. Yeah, there was plantations around there. The production of Kumandaria started there supposedly and became Kumandaria because before it was called Nama. This sweet wine made in Cyprus was called Nama, which, if you want to believe in myths, it is just the opposite of Mana, which means mother. Yeah.
Ah, very interesting. You see, now I learned something, because I always thought that I know everything when it comes to Cyprus history, but you are excellent. Very interesting. Now let's go back a little bit. When I came to Cyprus the first time to work in 1982. And at that time, we had more or less two wines. One was Othello and the other one was Aphrodite. Okay, there were a few more, but we have come a long way since the beginning of the 80s, haven't we? I mean, there are so many beautiful little wineries here. Lots of areas have been developed. What do you think made people, because not every country that has the opportunity to produce wine does, but here in Cyprus, we have a lot of wine production and a lot of good wine production. Do you know why it was developed like this?
Well, now we need to go back in the 1920s, when the Cypriot wine industry was started to be industrialized. Yeah. Before that, it was small producers in villages, but in the 20s, there was the construction of 4 very big wineries. Well, 20s was the first one that started Kio, and also Etko grew up to be quite a big winery, and then Sodap and Loel also got established. So these 4, for 80 years, they produced wine in a mass-produced way, let's say, where the main mission was to turn grapes into wine and export it. Now, that was the necessity back then. It was a model that worked. Mind you that Cyprus back then was producing more grapes per head of per capita, per head per population than any other country in the world. There was a lot of grapes for a small island. There had to be done something, and that was the government was subsidizing this industrial units, or big wineries, I should say. And there were a lot of exports. Also, exports were subsidized. So the model was working for 80 years. So we are reaching the late 80s, 90s, where the small wineries started appearing because the subsidies had to stop, because first of all, it's taxpayers' money. You cannot just pay taxpayers' money to export wine. It doesn't work like that in a contemporary economy. And also, the subsidies had to stop because of the political decision to enter the European Union. This mass production of wine was not sustainable anymore. There are other reasons also. The main product of Cypriot wine industry back in those days was sherry. Now, sherry, it's an older type of white wine, yeah, and mainly white, which fell out of favor from the consumer. And at the same time, the Spanish claimed the word sherry, which is Spanish, to be, in all fairness. So those markets were gone for the Cypriot wine industry, and new, more modern styles of wine had to appear. So there was a new need. There was a lot of money being put in from the European Union for these smaller wineries to be able to get help for investments, for smaller tanks, for machinery, for the building of the winery and everything. So for the past 40 years, there's been a lot of EU structural funds coming in the wine industry in Cyprus. And here we are today with very good examples of wines and quite modern wineries. So the industry was transformed in 30 years.
Very interesting. If you say in those years before the 80s, where did all this export go? Where did all the Cyprus wines where were they exported to?
Mainly in Europe, also to Russia, Soviet Union back then, of course. So a lot of them were exported to these countries.
Very, very interesting. I can see one of your children, and I
Yeah.
think she should say something. Do you like the fact that your daddy makes wine?
Mama.
Mama likes the wine.
Yeah. Amelia's a bit shy.
One of my memories when it comes to grapes and wine, when I came here many, many years ago, was when I had to go to Paphos or I had to go to different places to work, to the hotels. We had no highways at the time. And I used to be stuck behind a truck full of grapes, and the grape juice was like running out of that truck. And that's how the grapes were transported. And there used to be street signs saying slippery road because of grape juice. That doesn't happen anymore, does it? In today's world, what do we have? Smaller wineries, so it doesn't need to be transported anymore, or do we have better transportation?
It's better transportation. There's still wine being transported from one district to another, but it happens mainly in crates. So these are boxes, plastic boxes that contain anything from 15 to 18 kilos of grapes. So there's no squashing, because what you have described, it was when grapes were put in big trucks, at the back of big trucks, and the bottom ones were squashed by the top grapes from the weight. And that's why the grape juice was released. Nowadays, there is no mechanical stress of grapes. They're being transported in these boxes. And also, they are being transported a few hours after they've been harvested. This is also important.
So they don't stay somewhere in and start juice starts coming out yet. So that doesn't happen anymore. It's also, I don't think it would be allowed anymore to have that on today's roads with the highways that we have now. But
yes.
Another thing, let's talk a little bit about Zambartas wineries. So you said your father started it. When your father started it, did you know that you were going to go into business, or did it happen afterwards?
No, it was prearranged that I would join. My father probably wouldn't start because he invested his pension money, really. So, yeah, we did discuss about it before, and it was a conscious decision that we both go forward with it.
And do you regret it, or are you happy about it?
No, I'm happy about it. That's a very definite yes.
Definitely. So it's a very, very, you're a very happy winemaker. Zambartas wineries, your grapes grow in an area called Ayos Ambrosios, which is, how high is Ayos Ambrosios approximately?
Ayos Ambrosios is at 575 meters, but most of actually Ayos Ambrosios is in the region of Krasoporia, which means wine villages, and it's the second oldest region of Cyprus for growing grapes. The oldest one is actually on the northern slopes of Troodos. So it's between, let's say, Troodos Mountain, the summit of Troodos, and Nicosia. That's the oldest, close to the Maheras Monastery. So Ayos Ambrosios is in the Krasoporia region, the wine villages. And our vineyards, there are very few in Ayos Ambrosios, but most of them, they're actually higher up in the Krasoporia region, in Omodos Mandria, mostly, which is at around 800 to 950 meters above sea level. I would like to add at this point that Cyprus boasts the highest vineyards in Europe.
The highest when it comes to altitude?
Yes.
But the climate helps, doesn't it? Cyprus has a very good wine-growing climate, a lot of sun.
Yes, but one has to be careful not to have too much sun.
Okay, so too much sun can be damaging then.
Yes, that's why we're planting in higher altitude, and also we're looking for northern and eastern orientation. South and west. Let's say south has the longest sunshine hours, and the west has the strongest sun of the day.
I read that you're also exporting quite a lot of wine. What is the relationship with how much wine is consumed on the island and how much do you export?
Now, we export 9%, but one has to understand that 40% of the wine that is sold on the island is actually consumed by tourists.
Wow.
So it is an indirect export. It's not consumed by the local population.
Yeah, so it goes, but well, we have a high number of tourists every year, and I'm sure people take wine home as well. Do you sell at the airport?
Yes, we do.
Yeah, so that's good to know for somebody who is only here with hand luggage and knows that they cannot take it through security. You can buy it after security in the duty-free shop.
Correct.
This was like a free advertising spot, Marcos, for you. Zambartas winery. I have not visited it. I was planning to visit you, and I was planning to do this episode in person, but now it hasn't happened. You do arrange wine tastings. You have different programs from what I remember. What are your programs that you do if somebody wants to come and visit you?
Yes, so it depends. We've thought of different experiences at the winery or programs, as you have mentioned, based basically on how much time would a visitor have or how much dedicated a visitor would be. So the simplest one would be in half an hour to taste a few wines, pay a small amount of money, get a feel for the wines, sit down. It's basically for those that they are on the way somewhere and they would like to spend half an hour, 45 minutes at a nice setup with nice wine and learn something about the wine industry of Cyprus. On the other side of the spectrum, we have a canapé and wine matching. So we prepare fresh canapés that they match each of our wines. So we sat down and we figured out, based on the flavors of wine, how should a canapé taste, and we make these canapés from Cypriot authentic products like Tamarella, Lunza, Epsima, and we combine it with the relevant wine.
I often hear people say that wine doesn't taste the same when it's not in the country. Like sometimes people say, you shouldn't take wine abroad. It doesn't taste the same when you drink it there. Why is that? Is that true? What do you say about that?
I think, first of all, that's a bit of an overstatement. I wouldn't agree necessarily with that. There is the idea of not storing wine very well. So what happens usually is that you go in a country, you buy a bottle of wine, you leave it somewhere in the house except the wine fridge, and then after some time you remember that bottle of wine, but it's not well stored, so it tastes differently. Plus the fact that you're on holidays, there's no stress. You're probably having a good time. You're having a nice glass of wine or a bottle of wine. You enjoy your time. It's a much different setup if you are in North Europe, minus 10 degrees outside. It's a different feeling. You know what I'm talking about.
It's connected to an emotion, I think. And that makes a big difference. I so totally agree with you, and I don't think it has anything to do with the wine, but with how you feel. I mean, if you're not feeling well, I would imagine that the best wine in the world doesn't taste well. So it comes from inside.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, another thing that always fascinates me is all these expensive wines. The only one that I know is Chateau Petrus. I don't know much else. I mean, that's the word that I can hit you with. But what is the fascination about the bottle of wine that costs, I don't know, 5,000 euros?
First of all, I can sign you any paper you like, that a bottle of wine cannot cost more than 20 euros per bottle to produce. Any bottle of wine. Yeah. So it's not about the cost of production. It's about the perceived quality. It's about the idea that a wine of that magnitude has, it's a very scarce commodity. It's a statement if you're drinking that wine. It's not very different from art.
Or fashion.
I wouldn't call it a fashion.
Bags.
I wouldn't call it a fashion, Elizabeth, because if it was a fashion, it would die out by now.
No, I mean a fashion piece of like a bag, a handbag. You can buy a handbag for 20 euros, and you can buy one for 120,000 euros. That's probably that's what you're saying here.
Yes. So at the end of the day, it's we do give more emphasis on our dinner stories, and having a Chateau Petrus, I think you have a good dinner story there, Yeah,
I never had one, so I don't have that dinner story to tell.
I had, but I didn't buy it, so.
You are in. Well, next time you get invited to one, I'll come with you.
Okay.
So Most Memorable Journeys here is kind of a travel podcast, but I talk about people's lives. But let's talk a little bit about you and traveling. Where do you travel with your family?
Well, because my wife is from the Netherlands and we live in Cyprus, obviously the Netherlands is somewhere we go often. My wife and the kids go more often than I do. And then we try to combine wine as well. So if we're going anywhere else than the Netherlands, we tend to go to wine regions in Italy, and this year we're planning to go to France via Netherlands. Actually, we went to Maastricht in the area where we've tasted, it was a couple of years ago, we've tasted Dutch wine as well.
I was just going to ask, are there any Dutch wines?
Yes, there are in the south. And they're surprisingly good, especially the white ones. For good red wines, I think they need another 50 years of global warming. But it will come, I guess. So, I would recommend that. Don't be afraid of a bottle of wine that is made in Holland. You're going to have a positive surprise.
That's interesting to know, because I have just recently, we have very good friends in Holland, in Eindhoven, and I don't remember if I asked, but surely there is wine in nearly every country in the world, even though the climate in some of those places is not very good. I mean, not very good. What is good climate anyway? It's not only sun, it's a combination of many things, isn't it?
Yes, I mean, you can even have wine in India, It's just a matter of, the vine as a plant is very, very robust and adaptive to the climatic conditions. It's not the idea of not having wine in a particular region. It's the idea how good is the wine because of the climate of the region. So you have wine from Thailand, you have wine from Denmark, you have wine from China, and you have wine very close to Patagonia. So wine is a plant that is quite versatile. So you can find wine. If you're a winemaker, you can work pretty much in every country of the world.
That's fascinating. And I am a wine drinker, and I can drink it more or less in every part of the world.
Yes.
We are coming to the end of this podcast episode. Any last recommendations, any last wise words about wine?
Well, I think it's the time where we should be drinking less and better.
Very good.
It's important for our health and for our well-being. This is what I do personally as well. Instead of drinking 2 bottles of wine that they cost, let's say, 20 euros per bottle, I prefer to drink one that is 40 euros. Go after smaller producers if they're good. Not every small producer is good. Try wines that you haven't tasted before. It's about discovering. It's about learning. If you have the opportunity to look up the winery when you're drinking their wine, it will multiply the satisfaction, I believe.
Excellent. Those are perfect last words. We are going to put the website of Zambartas Wines in the show notes. So for the people who are listening to us, if you want to have a look who I spoke to, and also if you want to visit us here in Cyprus, you should definitely look up Zambartas Wineries in Ayas Ambrosios. Thank you very much for being on Most Memorable Journeys today, Marcos Zambartas.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you for the opportunity.
If you enjoy my podcast, please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. You will find all the information in the show notes.